Good morning to one and all present here. At the outset, I request all the participants to put yourself on mute and switch off their cameras except the dignitaries and the faculty members present here. Okay. So yes, the time has come to.
Ma'am, please unmute yourself.
I was not audible.
Yes, ma'am, you can please start again.
Okay. So the time has come to draw a curtain to our program, and we are coming to the close of the 2 days International Symposium on Sustainable Development Deliberations. We had 2 panel discussions and 8 technical sessions. So I request Mr. Dhiman Datta, student co-convener of International Symposium, to carry forward with the opening of the program.
A very good morning to everyone present here. I, Dhiman Datta, student co-convener, International Symposium, on behalf of DME Law School International Conference team, welcome you all to the valedictory ceremony of the annual International Symposium on Deliberations on Rethinking of Environment Sustainability in the Modern Era.
May I take this opportunity to welcome the dignitaries present over here. Today we have with us our chief guest, Professor Dr. Preeti Saxena, Director, Center of Postgraduate Legal Studies, Ambedkar University, Lucknow. We are really thankful to you for joining us today, ma'am, and hearty welcome to DME. We are honored by the presence of our guest of honor, Honorable Mr. Ranjan Chatterjee, sir, former expert member, National Green Tribunal. We are honored to have you, sir. We welcome you to DME. We are also privileged to have our esteemed guest of honor, Ms. Gayatri Raghava, ma'am, Environmental Education Consultant at United Nations Environment Program. We wish to have such dignitaries along with us on the valedictory ceremony of our international conference. I also welcome Professor Dr. Rashmi Nagpal, ma'am, Dean DME Law School, who is a guiding force for the entire program. And last but not the least, I welcome all these important participants, honorable faculty members, students, and the worthy audience. At this stage, we acknowledge and thank our contributors, our esteemed patrons, learned resource persons who have made this event a grand success. We would now like to share a short video montage with all of you to give everyone here a glimpse of our conference. I request the Zoom management team to kindly share the screen for the same. I think the sound is not there, right?
Let him check the sound first.
Yeah.
Durga.
Ravina ma'am, I think the sound has suffering an issue.
Okay, because the sound is coming on my system, but as you told me that there are separate settings for
Durga, if you may play.
Yes, ma'am. Give me a second. I'll just play it. 1 second.
Ravina ma'am, I think you can stop sharing this.
colleagues. I am Stéphane Poufari, the CEO of Energy 2050, a non-profit, non-governmental organization engaged at the international level in the fight against climate change and the implementation of the so-called just transition. We are engaged both on the climate negotiation side and on the implementation side with partners and activities in more than 70 countries. I will have the great pleasure to present our vision later today in the session on sustainability in a dynamic world.
The fragrance of flowers is spread only in the direction of the wind, but the goodness of person spreads in all directions. We are honored to have with us our esteemed guest of honor, Mr. Ranjan Chatterjee, sir. Sir is the former expert member of National Green Tribunal. He graduated from Hindu College, majoring in political science. Later, sir did his master's in economics from London School of Economics. Sir taught in the Venkateshwara College, Delhi, before joining as an IAS officer. Sir was the chairman of Airport Authority of India. He was also the joint secretary in Ministry of Defense, Government of India, chief secretary in the Meghalaya government, consultant with Planning Commission on environmental issues, and later the member of NGT. I now invite sir to deliver his address. Please, sir.
Requesting Navjot ma'am to please make
Sir was
Ranjan
here,
the
Divan.
co-host.
Now I'm not able to
He is
see
here,
him.
ma'am.
Just speak to him.
Navjot ma'am,
Priya, please connect with sir. He was here just 2 minutes.
Yes, ma'am. Requesting Navjot ma'am to please make Ranjan sir the co-host.
Okay. Okay.
Navjot ma'am, can you hear me? Sir has rejoined, ma'am. Navjot ma'am, requesting you to make him the co-host.
It's done, ma'am.
Sir, can you hear us?
Is it okay now?
Yes, sir,
Yes,
it's
sir.
fine. Thank you.
Yeah, because something happened in between. So now it's a great honor for me that the DME has thought of inviting me to this international symposium, and I see that it is the number of participants is nearly 200 already at this stage, and I'm sure it will gallop on to much higher numbers. And the most important thing is the concern that we have for the sustainability part in our development. Well, let me share with you that about 10 years ago, when I retired from active service in the government of India, and I was in the planning commission, there were some planned discussions, and one of the young ladies, lady IAS officers from the state, she came and she was in my room, and while leaving, she says, "Sir, you look just the same, as we had seen you in the academy," because I used to go and deliver some lectures at the IAS Academy in Missouri. So, and then she added a rider with a comma, except that the hairline has somewhat receded. Now, I think I'm trying to underline that point, This is what has happened to our nature. This is what has happened to our environment. We look just the same, except that the forest cover has declined. There is more of real estate constructions everywhere. Agricultural fields have declined all over. And yet we are unable to see the writing on the wall. Now, close to our present time, in 2020 and 2021, the last 2 years, we were in an absolute jam. And I'm sure DME must have also been working online. And just as a continuation of that, we are still having the seminar online. And, we are not being able to meet. There is no socializing. There is no meeting anybody. And our life virtually came to a standstill. And thereafter, once we realized all these things, slowly it sunk in what was happening in China, what was happening in the United States, what was happening in Africa, India, and everywhere. And then we started doing the most unbelievable things. We practically shuttered down everything. We locked ourselves up. We didn't allow our children to go to schools and colleges. People who were in a relationship, quote unquote, young people were unable to meet. Everything was through Zoom or anything else. But, essentially we completely locked ourselves and the world virtually collapsed. Now, there is something, a rebellious kind of an incentive to get back to normalcy, as we see everywhere. If you go around the streets of Noida, Delhi, or Faridabad, etc., people are crazy, with vehicles, scooters, autos, and everything moving at such frenetic speeds. The concept is that people have lost so much of money and they desperately want to get back to normalcy, with the added fear that sooner or later there could be a fresh wave of corona and everything might get shuttered down again. Having said that, do we realize that the catastrophe which is likely to be brought about by climate change is ushering in surreptitiously the huge impacts? This morning's Times of India, for instance, under Times Evoke, gives a whole page series of important articles about the impact of global warming, the impact of heat. Now, we all talk of global warming, whether it should be 1.5% on an average or 1%, but we seldom realize the meaning of heat and the impact of heat. To give you an example, many years back, I was somewhere in Ras Al Khaimah, near Dubai, and I'd gone to meet a friend of mine, and he was in the army, local army, and he was taking about 10 minutes to come out and meet me at the gate. we had done some course in India, the national NDC course. So and I was interested in meeting him. Let me share with you the temperature over there was 52 degrees. And the 10 minutes that I stood outside my car, my head was spinning and I just didn't know which way to look. And this is the impact on a moderate, healthy human being. If, for instance, the same thing were to happen to a convalescent mother or a weak child, you can understand how devastating the impact would have all been. Not only human beings, talk of the animals, talk of the birds. I was reading that even in Australia, these beautiful birds called koalas, 2,000 of them perished because of global warming. Why? Because they actually are on a particular kind of tree, and that eucalyptus tree was not having much water, because eucalyptus is a guzzler, drinks a lot of water from the underground, but the birds used to find it, to nibble around over there and stay in its leaves and so on and so forth. But since the water was not there, underground water had receded, the birds, more than 2,000 of them perished. So therefore, we need to understand, or at least imagine, the impact of global warming. And as I will come to later in this brief 10 minutes that have been given to me, this extreme weather events are getting worse. And then it caused, for instance, in Bolivia and Malaysia, floods. Tropical cyclones are getting more and more inexplicable. Now, in India, most of the agriculture is, rain-fed agriculture even today, with so much of irrigation facilities, but there are all limitations. I come from the state of Assam, and I have seen over there, and also in Bengal, for instance, most of it is rain-fed. So what is actually happening is rains and monsoons, right from the time of Kalidasa, the poet, symbolize so much to us. After a parched, hot summer, we all look forward to monsoons. But when the monsoons come, is it something that we want to rejoice, or is it something that we wish to lament? That is the question I am asking you. The point is that every monsoon invariably comes with some floods. And who bears the brunt of it? The woman, the poor, the children. Anything happening, if you see who's dying or who's on the verge of death, it is these communities, the most vulnerable. The woman, the underfed, malnourished children, the poor. Now, all this causes loss of livelihood, loss of assets, and loss to health. I have come across, I don't know what is your experience, just to share with you, if you it is my impression that whenever I have met people after 1 year or 2 years, I find that they are very different. They have become very different. The reason being, I inquired from their family, etc., and they found that yes, after Corona, that person has started conducting or behaving himself or herself in a very different manner. So, howsoever they try, they are not what they were earlier in 2018 or 2019. And I was talking to somebody who is a psychologist, and she told me that yes, it has had a tremendous psychological impact on the people. Very many people are different. I would request some of you to just examine this point for yourself, because I haven't read much literature on this subject, but I think, similarly, climate change also brings about a tremendous impact on all of us, for that matter, and how we will conduct ourselves, we just don't know thereafter. In this context, another buzzword is market instruments, which will possibly help us to trade in pollution. What does it mean actually? If you are rich, you can continue to pollute, setting it off against the poor whose consumption is much less. So basically, the lifestyle doesn't change. We in India are given incentives to cut down our electricity bills. And if we can bring down our electricity bills to a certain threshold level, the company does not charge us. The government gives us a certain amount of subsidy. So I am all the time running into all the rooms, so that when my family members leave that room, I go to switch off the light, the fans, the AC, and so on and so forth. But I don't find the same degree of concern when I visit my children in the United States of America and in UK, because these people are just not bothered. The state, takes so little, electricity companies take so little, that their lifestyle is different. Their consumption pattern is so very different. So it is extremely unfortunate that these things are happening. And, the carbon trading concept has never really taken off, because it is again making a distinction between us and them. The US thinks of itself as us, and it thinks of the third world countries or the developing countries as them. Now, as long as you consider to think of two worlds, the rich and the poor, you will never be able to have a sustainable development goal. You will never be able to achieve it. And if you permit me to use some strong language, we have in the Indian Constitution the famous lines, "We, the people of India," with a capital W, and ... The question that I would like to place before you is, how much do we think about we, the people of India? Are we all alike? Do we think the whole nation is one? Do we think that we have to move forward, or do we think that only the rich need to go ahead and the poorest of the poor are having different goals altogether? This is something that I would like all of you to reflect upon. I am not entering into any political parlays, but all I'm saying is, do we have that unity of thought, even though the Constitution was inscripted in 1950? Then there is this issue of toxic air pollutants. There is invariably a blame game. Come the month of October, November, everybody starts blaming everybody else. Oh, they are responsible. That is why this is happening. And I have myself been called a couple of times by certain television channels to say, "Ye kya ho raha hai? Kaise ho raha hai? Hum Punjab ko kaise kyun nahi bata sakte is tarike ka," and things like that. So, but unfortunately, no one goes into the real reasons. We are obsessed today with dust particles, and that are emanating from the construction activities. Soon, when the dust particles, become lighter and, they'll become much worse. They are bad, but when they become much worse, the government is likely to come forward with a knee-jerk reaction and say all construction activities are banned until it is cleared. And then the nefarious activities start of underhand dealings, where many of the construction activities would continue to be held, either because the private fellows are greasing the palms of the municipal authorities, or some government, is wanting to get things done come what may. Be that as it may. But what is the real thing is that, we continue to blame. For instance, we are happy to blame the farmers or somebody else, but not ourselves, because our lifestyle must go on as it is, business as usual. No, so with combating corona or climate change, what do we need to do? We need to focus on primary public health care. We never, one of the first things we realized is that we have zero public health in the whole country. And I have been a part of the administration for almost 39 years. But the concern for public health is there, but the instruments of control of public health are just not there. Many years back in Assam, when I was a district magistrate, I had a problem that a market was selling stale fish. And I had a lot of problems in trying to get the public health people to get into the act and say that, yes, the fish is not wholesome and therefore it should be destroyed. So anyway, similarly, when I was with the NGT, I recall having taken interest in a case which we used to call Mathala case in Odisha, where in a certain village, a road was being developed and, certain equipments were there, coal burning and things like that. As a result, there was tremendous amount of dust pollution. But everybody palms were greased and we were not able to get a correct response. So eventually we tried to get the response from the health authorities. And then we found that people suffering from respiratory diseases had increased during a particular year. It was less before, less after, but in between it had increased. And with the help of that, we were able to nail that particular road building activity or whosoever was sponsoring it. And the blame game was stopped. The best of advocates were used, but we said nothing doing. You have to pay so much amount of penalty. And more than anything else, what we did is we used a lot of that money to develop public health facilities in that particular place and 5 more rooms in the primary health center locally. Now, these are few and far between. What we need to do is much, much more and on a bigger canvas. When it comes to agriculture, it has been in the news so much in the recent past. We want to make it profitable. We want to make it sustainable. But that can't happen as long as we continue to exploit the farmers, in my humble opinion. Farmers get nearly 40% less than the market price compared to the minimum support price, and which the government announces in respect of 23 crops. Now that minimum support price also, they are not willing to make it into a right which is that of the farmers. Now, I think we need to go slightly deeper and understand why the Punjab farmers, so many of them commit suicides, so many of them are willing to die, which is the rice bowl and the wheat bowl of our country, Punjab and Haryana. Why a large number of them are falling below the poverty line? This is something that we need to think about, understand, explore, and not simply keep on, repeating parrot-like about market economics that will help resolve the problems. In my humble opinion, without taking any sides, I feel that making minimum support price a legal right is the only way forward to make agriculture more sustainable. We recently had the Conference of Parties in 2021 at Glasgow, and many great statements were made. Many people went there, and it turned out to be a big tamasha. because the problem of North and South is still not resolved. And global warming is moving towards unsustainable proportions, as I mentioned at the beginning of my submission. It is not that nothing has been done, but the question is, whatever has been done, is it sufficient for mankind to stay out of fear? That brings in the question of sustainability. Then again, vehicular pollution worldwide is another major concern. There has been some reduction in global transport carbon emissions from an increase of from a reduction of 1.9% annually, which was requested, to marginally less by 0.5% in 2019. But despite this, it is still responsible for about 24% of the direct carbon dioxide emissions from fuel combustion alone. Similar is the case of the skyrocketing aviation, combustion, and shipping. There are, of course, good models such as Singapore and Hong Kong, where they have made it very difficult for people to purchase cars on their own, keep private cars unless they have a space earmarked for them, and also improving public transport to such an order where everybody feels like using them. For instance, the public transport in United Kingdom, in London, is very good. Delhi Metro has increased tremendously, and one can only hope that in the years to come, more and more people start using public transport, and the last mile connectivity is also there. I have spoken to a lot of youngsters like you people who still prefer to use private transport as opposed to public transport, because they quote unquote whether the national capital is a safe city, whether when they come back from work or their academics, they're able to reach home safely, so on and so forth. So I think the society, the government, the administration, everybody must look at all these linkages, and especially the last mile connectivity, so that people are able to reach home safely, and thereby there would be a deterrence on using private transport. Of course, the Ola and Uber models also have contributed significantly, and now a lot of people have told me that they feel that it is not necessary anymore to keep private vehicles. I think NGT was coming down very heavily on old cars, 10-year-old cars, using petrol, diesel, 15-year-old vehicles using petrol, so on and so forth. But then, the system, the administration falls into the trap of the pressure groups, and thereby nothing significantly happens. It becomes more an exercise in paper. But we feel that, we should give more teeth, and we should support such things, because it is ultimately, unless we come forward wholeheartedly, we will not be in a position to arrest this global warming and make the development sustainable. Now, India has also signed for 100% transition to zero emissions between 2030 and 2040 as part of 44 cities, which means that if it is 2022, in the next 8 years, a lot of changes will have to be brought about in our laws and in our lifestyles, and the government should be able to sort of the whole community should start feeling that, yes, it is in our interest and not us versus them. Friends, I have worked with the NGT for about 5 years, and I think those were the heydays, where we were able to come down very drastically on so many cases. People used to remember us for a few odd cases here and there, which got a lot of publicity. But the bread and butter was, there was so much amount of mining which was stopped. There was so much amount of air pollution matters which was addressed. A doctor had come forward from Agra, and where he said that what is the impact of air pollution on neonatal, the newly born kids. We don't realize some of these kinds of things continue, all their lives, for the next 30, 40 years. And then we start realizing how bad it was, and were able to relate to the kind of situation that we gave it to them when they were so young. So, when we talk of intergenerational equity, which is also in focus in your international conference symposium, I think these are the important issues that we need to think about and try to make this world somewhat better for the, for the next generation to come. Similarly, of course, right now, in between, the NGT had passed through a very dismal chapter in its history when there were so few members. Now, of course, government has filled up these posts, but I would like to put across a question that, not filling up of these posts and not allowing the NGT to function in a proper manner also raises a question that, is the government interested in a sustainable development, or it is trying to support development at the cost of environment, at the cost of sustainability? It is only a question for you to think about, reflect, and understand. Similarly, I have worked for long periods in the Northeast, and particularly in Assam and Meghalaya. And, the forest cover of, 14% of India's total forest cover is in that area itself. But the question is that forest cover is actually getting denuded by the day. There are so many areas which are actually deemed to be forests as per law, but in real life, real terms, people are living in them as if it were anything else. And they have become habitable, and there is a pressure that, the law should not touch them because they are people with long arms, a lot of contacts, and so on and so forth. Now, that is a very, very unfortunate part. But the good thing of the Northeast, even now, in many of the states, particularly Meghalaya, is that the community is very strong. So we need to have community management of the assets, community management of the natural resources. The law has to be there. The state government, central government, the pollution control boards, the NGT, everything has a role. But the community at the lowest level, we should involve them much more in protecting our forests. All of you would have heard the name of Mr. Jadav Payeng, who is known as the forest man of India. Now, he has set up a beautiful forest on the outskirts of Majuli, near Jorhat. I happened to be a district magistrate in that district, and I'm so proud of this man that, single-handedly he has done this particular thing. And today we all reward him, but do we actually try to emulate him? How many such illustrations are there where, people are encouraged to set up forests on their own? So at the end, I feel that global warming is indeed a very, very serious business, and therefore we must all involve ourselves through a community. It is not the government's function alone. You know, the protection of the trees is actually as important as protection of the forest. A single tree is also very important. There was a write-up by Ritvik Datta, an environmentalist who has, I think in 2021, been given the alternative Nobel in Sweden, along with Rahul Chaudhary, these two gentlemen, and I'm very proud of both of them for their excellent work in basically pro bono in the mines of Odisha. So he has written this article in the Economic and Political Weekly I had read some time back, that we talk of protecting the forest, but do we talk of protecting the trees? Because in urban areas, we don't get forests, but we get trees. So every tree needs to be protected. And I think in the whole country, you know, we don't pass such laws. Apart from Delhi and Goa, no other places there in India where trees are actually protected. So I think that is a step in the right directions. And we have to drastically reduce the carbon footprints by telling the people what are the small baby steps they should all take. You know, when we have more heat, what do? We buy more air conditioners. When we buy more air conditioners, there is more pollution. So these are the kinds of things we have to sort of guard against and not continue to think as we versus them. Now, these are sort of my few observations, and I must thank all of you for giving me this opportunity. If I've overstepped my time, pardon me for that. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, sir, for the insightful understanding you shared with us today. Now, we are also honored to have as guest of honor, Ms. Gayatri Raghava, ma'am. Ma'am is an environmental educational consultant at UNEP, a teacher by training with 22 years of experience at college and school levels in India, who has also spent 15 years raising the profile of environment education in the United Arab Emirates. She advises several international organizations and is honorary executive director at Valedictory, an organization committed to providing real-life sustainability experiences to youth and the other target audiences. Ma'am joined UNEP in early 2019 as UNEP's sole environmental education consultant based in India. She launched the Tide Turners Challenge in India and focuses on higher education work. She has supported UNEP initiatives such as the Little Book of Green Nudges and the Race to Zero. Now I invite ma'am to deliver her address. Please, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Okay. I don't know what more I can say after what Sri Ranjan had talked about. I think he covered practically everything, but I'll try to do what I can. First, good afternoon, namaskar. It's a great honor to be a part of this international symposium on deliberations and rethinking of environment, sustainability in the modern era. My greetings to all youth, mentors, experts present here today at this valedictory session. The theme of this conference is indeed thought-provoking. Sustainability is a paradigm for thinking about future in which all environmental, economic, social, and cultural parameters are balanced in the pursuit of an improved quality of life. For example, a prosperous society relies on a healthy environment to provide food and resources, safe drinking water, and clean air for its citizens. Sustainability is also a very wicked problem, and like all wicked problems, is very complex and interconnected. It's difficult to formulate, and solutions can only be good or bad, not true or false. The only way out of this wicked problem is when we learn to think in systems, The very definition of the term sustainability means the ability to sustain. And my question is, what do we want to sustain? We always sustain only what we love. The question then is, what do we love? Do we love our malls? Do we love the kind of development that we are talking about? The word sustainable development, we keep talking about it, but all through our lives, we've educated our young people on development and not on sustainable development. We've just made them carbon replicas of ourselves or the previous generation, make more roads, become more engineer, make more buildings. This is how we've risen them up. And at this point, we talk about sustainable development, and we never taught them what was sustainable development. By 2050, the world population is expected to reach a whopping 10 billion. And this means more people, more demand, food, fashion, travel, housing, all related aspirations. While we ponder at how we would provide for these, it gets further complicated when we think of some of the world's observed trends today. We talk about globalization, homogenization. We all want a cola, no matter wherever we are in this world. We talk about digitalization, yet we are so disconnected and we are also alone. We have rise of xenophobia. We have general lack of accountability globally. And most importantly, we have a socio-ecological crisis. Today, we stand at the crossroads. The pandemic has made us reflect on all our systems, health, society, economy, education, and life itself. COVID-19 is a zoonotic disease. It was transmitted from animals to humans. In fact, if we examine, the zoonotic diseases have been continuously increasing. We had SARS, we had Ebola, we had, and all of these diseases are zoonotic disease. It's a direct warning that nature can take it no more. Since 1990, 420 million hectares of forest, equal to 3 times the size of South Africa, has been lost. 1 million species face extinction. Illegal wild trade is the 4th largest crime in this world. We are faced with the very, very real prospect of an increase of 3 degrees Celsius in global temperature by the end of the century, especially if we continue with our emissions and productions and business as usual. Just recently, I think Dr. Ranjan also spoke about it in Glasgow in November 2021 during the climate meet. All countries promised to, the ones who had promised to reduce their emissions and limit global temperature to less than 1.5 degrees, were a long way to meet up with their target. Use of fossil fuel is still rampant. We are now faced with the prospect of reaching 1.5 degrees Celsius increase in just 2 decades, just 20 years. The United Nations Secretary General has declared a code red for humanity. It's called for action ASAP. It is predicted that by 2050, there will be more plastics in the ocean than the fish by weight. We must remember all crises, whether it's a physical, economic, social, ecological, or psychological, or cultural, they all stem from the way we think and perceive the world and our place within it. In the words of a very famous environmentalist, Aldo Leopold, we abuse land because we regard it as a commodity belonging to us. When we see land as a community to which we belong, we may begin to use it with love and respect. We cannot think of sustainability today without making peace with nature. Sustainability in the modern era is not possible without this. It is not my intention now to instill a sense of foreboding among youth who are listening in today, because all this talk of global warming, biodiversity loss, everything fills them with dread. Fear can be paralyzing. In fact, there was a study done by Bath University just some time back, and it reveals that most of our youth are really concerned about environment and global warming. And they're all really fearful of what is going to happen. But fear, as I said, can be paralyzing. But we can reverse it. We need to rein back a sound stewardship of our only Earth. Remember, we have our only one planet. But when we talk about a challenge, always challenge brings with it opportunities. 3.5 billion people today are youth under the age of 30. Young people think out of the box. You have the capacity to think critically, innovate, create, communicate. You are the change makers. When empowered with the knowledge of your rights and equipped with leadership skills, you can drive change in your communities and in your countries. To take an example, at UNEP India, we are currently implementing a global initiative called the Type Turner Plastic Challenge. This challenge is designed to educate youth across the world to understand the impact of plastic pollution and motivate them to reduce their plastic consumption along with encouraging theirs. We have 33 countries participating in this initiative. Until now, in India alone, we've reached out to 330,000 youth across all states of India. The experience has been amazing for me. We have stories of young people. I would like to quote Sneha Shahi, my favorite crocodile girl, who was an engineering student in Vadodara. She, with her friends, as a part of this whole plastic Type Turner challenge, cleaned up a small little rivulet, Bhuki Nadi. And in fact, nobody knew that it was a Nadi. They thought it was a Nala. So they would put in all the plastic waste in there. So she cleaned up the whole Nadi, and crocodiles and flapjack turtles returned. We have a Ruturaj in Bihar. These people are not well known, but they've done wonderful work. Rituraj in Bihar actually has started a plastic warrior team in each and every school in Bihar. We have an Abhishek Mani, a school student who cleans up all the drains in Azamgarh on the way to his school. So at UNEP, we believe in the power of youth and work with partners for engaging with young and inspired next generation of leaders who are environmentally conscious and committed. We are always looking out for youth who have big, bold ideas for the environment, for humanity, and for greener future. Under our annual Young Champions of the Earth Award, constituted by UNEP, which aims to nurture the next generation of environmental leaders, we truly have seen some wonderful, brilliant work from young people. I'm sure you would have heard of our own Vidit Mohan from India. He was one of the Young Champions of the Earth winner in 2020. He founded the Takachar, a social enterprise enabling farmers to prevent open burning of their waste farm residues and earn extra income by converting them into value-added chemicals like activated carbon on site. I could go on and on and on. I have so many examples, and I'm really touched by all these youth. Sometimes I wonder when I'm called to speak on all these, who am I speaking to? Am I trying to motivate youth? In fact, it is they who are motivating me. They are inspiring me. They have done such wonderful work all over. All we need is give youth a platform for action. They can come up with wonderful solutions. Sustainability in the modern era cannot take place without the main stakeholders who are our youth. People like myself cannot do much because we were the cause of this problem. I mean, I would like to conclude my talk with a quote from our UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, because I so much connect with it. My generation has largely failed until now to preserve both justice in the world and to preserve the planet. It is your generation that must make us accountable to make sure that we don't betray the future of this mankind. And with that, I would like to conclude my talk with you. I hope it was of use to you. I didn't want to go too much technical. I know you've had wonderful sessions before, and all of the problems and all of the stuff has already been talked about. But what we need now is positivity. We need that positivity. We need youth to come up and you know, I think we need to give youth more chance. They can do so much. Just let them take over. And I think to all the youth out there, just take back your world from us. We spoiled it all for you. And I'm really sorry, and I apologize on that, on my behalf, at least for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your wonderful insights and about sharing your own experience and stories regarding the environment. Now, I take the pleasure to introduce our chief guest of the day, Professor Dr. Preeti Saxena, ma'am. Ma'am is a very experienced academician. She has a teaching experience of over 29 plus years. And her areas of specialization are in constitutional law, administrative law, human rights, etc. Right now, she is a head of the postgraduate legal studies in Ambedkar University, Lucknow. Ma'am has contributed a lot of articles and research papers published in various national and international journals. She's a recipient of Prashasti Patra award from the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports, Government of India in 2002. It's my pleasure to invite you for the keynote address, ma'am.
Thank you so much for this invitation in this international symposium of this valedictory session. So after thought-provoking expressions by earlier two experts, the guest of honors for this session, on the issues with their administrative, academic, and practical experiences, Mr. Ranjan Chatterjee and Madam Gayatri Randhawa. They both have raised many issues related to the topic chosen for discussion and deliberation, and also suggested the ways to deal with. The topic is very relevant in terms of the environmental degradation and destruction we are all facing today. And the important point about this degradation and destruction is that it is we who are responsible for that. Madam Randhawa also said that we are also contributing towards. You know that in the zoo at Lusaka in Zambia, there is a cage where a notice reads the words most dangerous animal. And inside the cage, you will find that there is no animal, but a big size mirror is there. And when you enter that cage, you will see yourself. And the notice reads, the dangerous animal, most dangerous animal of the world. So although this is the reality of the present life and situation in almost all aspects of life, but our environment is most affected. This notice also signifies that our planet faces the most potential threat from mankind rather from any other animals. So basically, it's a man who thinks that Earth is his property and he can dominate in any way he likes. And by eroding our resources to fulfill the selfish needs, almost we all have become dangerous to one another. And this notice basically or actually tries to put the light on the fact that we humans are most destructive creatures present on the earth. Now coming to the main theme of this symposium, which speaks about the rethinking the environmental sustainability in modern era. As the earlier speakers also told about, that really there is a need to rethink about, a need to assess what we have done earlier, what we are doing to our nature, Earth, this planet. The first point, what is sustainability or the idea of sustainability, and what is the need to rethink, or is there any need to rethink? So sustainability, as we all know in simple words, as it was there in the Brundtland conference, that is something like meeting of our own needs without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their own needs. And the main principle of sustainability of life on this planet are, we all know, solar energy. That is an important component of the sustainability. It sustains our energy sources and natural resources. The second being the biodiversity, which is also very important because it is vital to a healthy environment. And the human-made environment is the loss of biodiversity, we all know. So maintenance of biodiversity is very crucial to the sustainability, yet we are constantly reducing it at an ever increasing rate. And the third one is the nutrient cycling. That is all about the circulation of the chemicals and the earth natural resources like carbon, water, nitrogen, sulfur, whatever, from the environment through organism and man-made systems, and then back to environment. So each of these interacts with one another in the earth system to sustain our life. In addition to natural resources, we also need social and economic resources, rightly told by Mr. Ranjan Chatterjee ji about this. Further, depopulation of the rural areas and small towns is also indirectly affecting. So environment, particularly air, water, pollution or waste production and resource consumption. Further, if we see the industrialization of agriculture, then often supports the genetic modification or modified crops, GM crops, as the best solution to sustainable to feed our growing world population or the population as we are having the explosion in our country also. But there is also a serious threat to the environment, and agroecological farming methods are supported for this. So the main point is, how do we understand ourselves and our connections to the local and global societies in the light of new technologies, socioeconomic and political realities, and above all, their deep impact on the environmental challenges, which are changing the environment as a whole. And this all brings to my mind some questions like, how could we rethink our conceptual understanding of environmental sustainability? What are the major challenges in the world today for sustainable development? Whether sustainable development needs a systematic approach for current and future challenges for human development as a whole, or do we think to change a meaningful and a useful definition of sustainable development for our changing world? Changing technologically, changing scientifically, changing economically, and so on. And I suppose that in this 2 days international symposium, these issues must have been deliberated and discussed by the delegates and the panelists. However, as per the Global Sustainable Development Report, which was prepared by an independent group of scientists in 2019, on the demand of the United Nations member states, they decided in its 2016 high-level political forum for sustainable development. The report, that is Future is Law, Science for Achieving Sustainable Development. So laws are there. Science that has to develop again, that has to control the things. Give some ideas to deal with the modern era's problem. This report reflects the universal, indivisible, and integrated nature of the 2030 Agenda of Sustainable Development also. We all know the 17 goals of the Sustainable Development Goals, which are to be achieved by 2030, which includes no poverty, eradication of the poverty or elimination of the poverty, so that the families may survive, there may be increase in the prosperity, the children may be healthy. Zero hunger, that is one of the goal, with the purpose of immunization, nutrition, that will result in healthier family, and it will also happen by erasing the hunger, to establish the good health for the well-being of the healthy lives of all, and to provide quality education so that the learning may be improved, and that may also increase the educational attainment of the children, enforcement of the gender equality, because we all know that the relation of the women with the environment is very long. Clean water and sanitization, that is also one of the goals, that has to provide the opportunity for sanitation and for the cleaning, washing, and that will be resulting into less disease, so that improvement in the clean water and sanitation is also one of the goals. Affordable, clean energy, that is one of the goals. And we see that clean energy brings newer and cleaner and more sustainable technology for developing countries. Health system that includes environment also, to create some decent work for the economic growth, because that is also affecting the environment. As I just told you, the depopulation from the rural areas to the urban areas, from the semi-urban areas to the urban areas to the metro cities. So these are few of the goals which are targeted towards the improvement of the environment, to sustain the environment, whether it is related to organize the climate action, whether it is related to increase in the industry innovation and infrastructure at all the levels, or advanced life on land or below the water, develop the life below the water. So these are the goals which seems that they can be seen not only as an effort to enhance the global progress in achieving sustainable development, but also to rethink the notion of sustainable development, to rethink the sustainable development goals as a navigation principle, a political and social ideal of great importance in the modern era in global context. The report of this 2019 also seeks to strengthen the science policy interface as an evidence-based instrument to support policy makers and other stakeholders in the implementation of these 2030 SDGs across the social, economic, and environmental dimensions of sustainable development. So I think that, as also suggested by Chatterjee, Mr. Chatterjee, a model for socioeconomic, technological, ecological system need to be developed at world level that can look into the regional inventory of material in atmosphere, hydrosphere, lithosphere, biosphere, that can identify inputs and outputs, and also describe the quantify and cycling and recycling of materials in the system, that can provide solutions in recycling the heat of data centers as technological operations, and for e-waste, and for many more imbalances in the atmosphere because of the use of the technology. And of course, there is a need to rethink on all these issues, which are the result of modern technological era. We need to behave as the savers of this planet, not as the destroyers. We call this planet as Mother Earth, as our mother. So we should protect. And finally, as citizen, we should follow our fundamental duty given in the Constitution of India, the supreme law of the land, under Article 51A, subclause Z, which speaks about or confers a duty on every citizen to protect and improve the natural environment, including forests, lakes, rivers, wildlife, and also to have compassion for living creatures. This is one of the fundamental duties. We always talk about our rights, but if we will perform our duties, rights will follow us. This is what Mahatma Gandhi said once. And we forget to perform our duty. If we perform our duty, if we think that we have to manage the things, if we think that we have to perform these duties, then of course we will get a good environment around us. Internationally, we all know we have many instruments to protect our environment. And nationally, we have plethora of laws to control different type of the pollutions, whether it be air pollution, water pollution, noise pollution, vehicular pollution, and so on. Our judiciary is also, in its expansive interpretation, included pollution-free environment as a fundamental right to life, though it's not given as a separate fundamental right in the chapter of fundamental rights in the Constitution of India. But this has been interpreted by the Supreme Court under Article 21 as right to life includes a pollution-free environment. Still, we are facing pollution because of our own contribution in that. Use of plastic, as Madam has rightly told. Then why we are not thinking about the environment? It's the time to rethink what we are doing, whether we are, or we can transfer to our future generations what we received from the previous generation, the very definition of the sustainable development. If we cannot follow that definition, if we cannot follow that idea of sustainable development, what we are doing, what as a citizen of the country we are doing. Development is good, but balanced environment is very necessary. So for that, we need to rethink about the definition of sustainable development by our own selves. We have to contribute towards the environment. We have to contribute a pollution-free environment for our future generations. And that is not for the future only, but for ourselves also. What we have witnessed during this COVID period, the amount of oxygen was not made available to the person concerned, and they died due to that. So if we would have not denuded our forests, then whether the situation would have been the same? No, it would not be. So this is the time. This is the time to think, and I must appreciate and congratulate the organizers for choosing a theme which requires a very, the discussion and deliberation on each and every aspect of the environment through which we are having to a sustainable development. And without taking much time, I thank the organizers for giving me the opportunity, first for listening to all the guests of honors who were experts in their field. They have the practical experience in their field, and they could quote what they have seen in their first-hand knowledge. Thanks to all for patience hearing once again.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for this insightful understanding that you shared with us today. So now moving ahead, now I would like to invite Professor Dr. Rashmi Khurana Nagpal, ma'am, Dean, DME Law School, Noida. Ma'am has a teaching experience of approximately 15 years. She has worked at organizations such as the Punjab University, Chandigarh, Amity University, Noida, Amity University, Lucknow, Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia National Law University, Lucknow, Nirma University, Ahmedabad, and as principal, Gita Institute of Law. She serves as editor, a member of the editorial board for leading law journals. And now I request ma'am to deliver her address. Please, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Divan, for inviting me to speak over. Words are short to express our sincere gratitude and thanks to all our esteemed members at this valedictory program. To start with, Preeti ma'am, I had heard ma'am last year at one of the programs organized by Shobhit University, where ma'am was the keynote speaker of the program on the Women's Day. And since then, ma'am, if you recollect, by Shobhit University, that was a program. And
Women's Day, I think.
Yes, that was Women's Day, along with Mrs. Rita Bahuguna Joshi.
Yeah.
So since that day, ma'am, and thereafter one more lecture of yours on research methodology in one of the universities, I remember that was also online. Since then, you were on my mind, that it was such thoughtful, thought-provoking, and a very, very simple lecture with so much of clarity which is required for our audience, our attendees, which includes all the youth, the youngsters. So being a law college, that need was there, that we do not talk about the diplomatic deliberations on sustainability, on survival issues, what is to be left for future generations, but to come to the core. As I remember one of the quotes of Mahatma Gandhi ji, he said that what we are doing to the forest of the world is but a mirror reflection of what we are doing to ourselves and to one another. So this makes the picture clear as to how are we dealing with our forest. And when we come to COVID-19, this pandemic has shown us just how devastating a global cross-border threat can be. And climate change and biodiversity loss are no different. That's also a cross-border threat, a global challenge, a universal challenge. And in fact, when we look at it, they pose an ever greater existential threat to the extent that we have to put ourselves on what might be called a warlike footing. So when I was, my sincere and heartfelt thanks to Mr. Ranjan Chatterjee, is he here? Vedpriya sir is here, a former expert member.
I had to leave for some urgent.
Okay, for his practical insights into the illusion of rich and poor, rich blaming the poor, poor blaming the rich for years on now. And we, the people of India, that we forget every time and have to reiterate ourselves every time that when we talk about sustainability, it is we that we think of. Then extremely thankful to Madam Gayatri Raghava, closely associated with UNEP, and her thoughtful words, her encouraging words, citing the examples of the youth. We can make that change. That is what is the need of the hour. We have so many students listening to us apart from the participants today. Let us take Gayatri's ma'am's words as a role model, as our true motivator, because this is what we all have a lot of time. Those who are doing it, starting from Marala Yusufai, Sneha Shahi, ma'am count, they gave the names of Rituraj. I think each one of us has those 24 hours, and small effort can make a lot of difference. So it is not about recognition. Recognition will definitely come gradually, but it is about that we need to start. We need to act today for a better tomorrow to save tomorrow. And ma'am's words have always been, we are extremely grateful to you, ma'am, for sparing your valuable time. I know how busy is your routine. And it's been, I told our convener, Vedpriya Lahiri, to contact you at the first instance for the valedictory. Said if ma'am is not available, then probably we shall definitely find out someone else, but it is ma'am's words that we must invite her over, and request to you, ma'am, to join us physically, because things are getting better now. So we'd like to have you here physically with us in DME. We are Delhi Metropolitan Education affiliated to IP University. We are based at Noida, but we are affiliated to IP University Delhi. So we would like to have you over with us. And thank you so much to each one who joined for this program. We had Srimati Menaka Gandhi in her inaugural address, actually pinpointing the reality of depleting forest cover, natural disasters, where we do not talk about methane. We only talk about carbon dioxide. So her words and all the views shared by the experts, we must keep deliberating it. We must take it forward. Let this conference, let this deliberations not end here, but it must continue to be there in our minds, and let us do a little bit of effort on our part. Together we can is a famous proverb, but let us treat individual as an institution. We can do a lot more, and let's keep doing. That should be the motive. Thank you so much. My best wishes to everyone. Thanks to the organizers as well, the organizing team, including the vibrant set of students to be with us for 2 days. And thank you so much, Preeti ma'am, to be here with us.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you to all the organizers.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Diman, I think we can continue.
Yes, ma'am, sure. So the end of the story is the beginning for many others. So I request all the dignitaries and faculty members to switch on their camera for a group photograph. Is it?
I think ma'am is already left. Doesn't matter. The rest can, if possible.
Yes, ma'am.